It's people, they mean well, and they actually mean well, and they want to do something positive in their life, and they may not know the truth, but they're willing to try. So I cannot bash them, even though the actual religion is an abomination to God. But because of our nation's nice history of freedom of religion, what good does it do to even say anything, right? But if you're interested in finding the truth, then it's there to look for, and I'm just giving you a heads up in what to look for and why spiritual things do the things they do. Because there's a lot of people out there that have seen them, they just don't know what they mean. So if you were to take the bringing together of everybody like that and actually put it in a single example in the Bible, that example would be Elijah the prophet. That is the embodiment of Elijah the prophet. He's the one that confronted the people of Baal. He's the one that changed it with God's help. It was either that or everybody he knew died, because this was another mass extinction, a mass genocide by those who wanted to take over. And like I said, this has happened many, many times in history to get rid of the people of God. Matter of fact, it's happening now to people in the world, and there's plans. I'm pretty sure that they happen here. Will happen here too. It's something that sounds funny, and it actually brings a bitter feeling to the stomach, you know, to even think that it could happen, let alone happen here, isn't a nice feeling. But the Christians have been being exterminated in the third world countries for the last 10 years. Millions upon millions. And nobody cares. And so you have that effect of Elijah the prophet there, and because Elijah the prophet actually came back. He came back to Joe to reestablish some of the temple works, and John the Baptist came back too, and they were meant to. That's why. Yeah, never mind. But you're getting the gist of it. There's several things that have taken place with the tithe, giving the money to God, and not, to Caesar's what is Caesar's, and to God what is God, is obviously a tithe. When Jesus Christ talks about the widow's mite, that widow gave more than anybody else did, he's talking about the tithing for the fasting tithe. And she can put a tithe in what it would cost her to eat for most of the day, before the fast break, and she puts that money in there, and then if she ever has any problems down the road and she can't pay to have a place to live or something, because she's old, then she can make that claim on the church for food. See? And the people of the church, you know, they would get tithing in farm goods, whatever goods were there equivalent to their tithe, and the church would store them or sell them and turn them into other things that were beneficial, you know, but mainly for a lot of that was for building the church itself. And the part about expenses, you know, Paul needed expenses. You get the rob Peter to pay Paul. Well, if you look to see who the Revelator was, that would definitely be Peter. And Peter would be the one that took the place of Jesus Christ after he died within the church. He would have been the prophet. In case nobody sees that one. So that's why Peter's getting the revelation of what is acceptable. Because, you know, they're told to do certain things, but then there's things that happen that are done by God, and what our place is when it's done by God and not us. See? Because we can do things a certain way, but God's part of it, so He's the creator of it, and He definitely has a part to play in it. And that was the whole thing. It was like, you know, you get taught in church that, oh, you know, somebody's going to stand up, speak in tongues, and then somebody's going to stand up and be the interpreter of the person speaking in tongues. But you're the one that sits there and goes, you know, I didn't understand a word that guy says, and I don't know if that guy that stood up afterwards is actually saying anything true, because he's supposed to be interpreting it, and if I didn't understand it in the first place, what good does it do me? You know, and that's exactly what the Bible says. What good is it going to do you? You know, if you can't speak in tongues and interpret it. You know, in other words, don't be stupid about the interpretation that's coming out. You know, if you don't have evidence of it, then you're not going to really know that if it's true or not. And that's what God is for. God is the one that gives the proof. You know, so when they're all in town in the marketplace and a bunch of people are starting to speak in tongues to the different people that are coming into that port in the country and doing their shopping, they don't speak their language, you know, and these people are hearing things about God. They never heard things about God and about being saved, and that's what the tongues were for, you know. And then you got people that are there going, well, I know my son never spoke that language, you know, and so it comes out this great big miraculous thing because everybody's doing it. You know, it's not somebody stands up throwing their lips together to make some funny sound, and then somebody else stands up, don't even know what they said in the first place, and is trying to interpret it. It just isn't going to happen that way. You have to have a mind to know the truth when you hear it. You know, you have to be in the right place, at the right time, with the right people, and with the real thing. And, you know, and I've seen where, oh, somebody's getting healed, they're in a wheelchair, they're getting healed, and it takes them 15 minutes to stand up. Takes them 15 minutes to stand up. Then it takes them another 20 minutes of stumbling around the stage with everybody cheering, and they still can't walk. They're just stumbling. And that was never what was read in the Bible about being healed. It was instant change. But this whole video is so that you know that Elijah the prophet, he had come back. He had already set things straight. And nobody heard him. Nobody heard he'd come. And anybody that heard he'd come said it was a lie. Now, let's go over that part. If you're a pastor and you're in a church and you've dedicated your whole life to being a pastor and you have a successful church, you bought one of those great big buildings, cost millions, you have thousands of people showing up and a few dedicated people that are willing to really help out. You know, some of the wealthy people are coming to your church and they're giving donations and stuff like that. And and somebody comes along that is making some sense and threatening your way and your belief that you've spent your whole time doing, then of course you're going to get nasty about it, because you've spent your whole life doing that. It's your income. It's your family's income. It's your credibility with the public that you've spent all that time defending and promoting. And like I said, there's a lot of people out there that mean well, and they want to do good service for their fellow man, but they just don't know what they're talking about. And that's their defense. And there's been a lot of people killed over that stuff. A lot of people. Because they get everybody riled up because they've known them. And the one thing about churches is the only reason you go to that church is because you have a friend that goes to that church, or friends that go to that church that talked you into going. Then you've made other friends while you were there. It's socially acceptable to go to that church within your community. And so it's really easy to get everybody riled up that is within those groups. And they don't stop to think that they're being manipulated, because they'll buy something from somebody they've known without ever having investigated it for themselves. You know, they're just willing to do that, and I don't know why they're willing to do that, but they are, and they do. It's like voting. We can get into that. It's you have an elaborate system that's set up for voting, and if you take a good look at the Democratic system for voting, then you're looking at a really interesting setup that they set up for themselves. And well, you know, the Democratic way is to set up unions. And though unions have a good point, they also have a bad point. So they can be helpful in bad management with bad management. I'm not saying that management is hardly ever good, because when it comes to getting somewhere in a harsh world, you're talking about lies and deceit, deception, and stuff like that. And it tends to happen a lot when somebody's trying to get someplace in a big hurry. They'll step on everybody, and it's just, there's just no good system to it. So the introduction to the Union was probably it wasn't the best idea, but it wasn't the worst idea. It was one of those ideas that was thrown right in between. Neither being right or wrong, but it definitely managed to be the focal point of the balance. And so socially accepted after a while that this was going to be a thing, then that's what it became. But it also became a democratic tool that you know, so many dollars of your union dues went to into the Democratic Party, and that wasn't a good thing. And like I said, I don't know why companies don't create their own. I think that's the focal point, the future. But they're not always right, because a lot of those concepts are coming from outside the United States, and is not a good thing for the United States. The United States is a certain way, and when you bring in foreign policies and ideas and things that are socially acceptable from another country, it's not because they had a union. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to create their own policies like that, along that same line. And you know, and then when you're talking about unions, and then you're talking about one of the biggest unions, and that's teachers' unions, which is a lot of women. So you're talking about a political party in itself, women. The biggest supporter of the unions, the biggest supporter of the schools, and the biggest supporter of the democratic system, women. So this is a very large party, you know, the burning of the bras and, you know, the whole 9 yards to manipulate things into their favor. And that's what it is. It's no different for anybody, really. You get the groups out there, and if they would have thought of it, they would have done it too. So you have everything, you know, when you weigh the difference between religions and actual parties and ruling classes and stuff like that, you know, it all boils down to the same thing. There's just somebody's going to have to win and everybody else is going to have to lose. And if they do coincide together, which is probably going to be the most favorable outcome, is that they all coincide together. But normally, as a rule, you get the product of the thing that took over. And so if you're supporting alternative lifestyles, you're going to get that product. And no, I'm not going to like to watch some dude dancing around in his underwear, you know, or walking down the street with his pants pulled down. I don't really care for that, you know, and I'm not into that. It's not my lifestyle. And I think anybody that is in that lifestyle is wrong. I don't want to have to put up with it. But that's who I am, you know. There's a lot of things that other parties, other religions and stuff do I don't want to have to put up with. It's not my place to have to put up with them. You know, I'm a male. I believe that men are the center of the world. Not women, not children, but men. Men are the love, and men are the center of the world. And without men, you don't have anything. You know, you can say that for the rest, but it's just true. Because if the Women's Party fails, their system fails, which is going to fail, because they are not the center of the world. And when it does fail, where are they going to run? Where are they going to run? Because then the children's world fails. Where are they going to run to? Who's going to protect them? And see, then you see the flawed state of things, because they want to do what they want to do, and it's just like in the family setup. This is the return of Elijah, and is for the family. And when you're looking at the family, you're looking at the male of the family. The family is taken care of by the male. Because sooner or later, the female's going to have a baby. Sooner or later, something's going to happen. And you're going to have to rely on the male. And if they're going to fail, their system is going to fail because they always want to spend everything. They always want their children to have the best of everything. And always are trying to pull as much as they can without being told what they have to do. And you get that, and you get that alternative lifestyle, you get lifestyles, you get the parties and everything that are totally against the men ruling at all. And so they can't own anything, they can't do anything, and it's really an anti-male society now. It's not an equal society. And they've been spending all this money, and Obama's been spending all this money because the Women's Party, the women's viewpoint cannot fail. Because you have Obama as being the head of the household now. And they're just doing whatever to try to keep that Democratic Party alive. And if they got to spend every last penny and bankrupt the nation to do it, they're gonna, because they don't want it to fail. It's the power. The power. And so you get this big struggle between the powers, and sometimes it can get nasty, you know. And right now they have even protested people's houses, you know, almost to the point where the house was going to be burned down because they were against somebody using it as a weapon against people that they don't want to have power. So they're trying to scare them off by doing that, and it gets dangerous because you can get people killed doing that. But they don't care. It's about the power. You know, you control everything. You know, it's just too bad. It's too bad that it has to boil down to that, but it's like I said, when their system fails them and they fail their children, they don't have a choice but to revert back to the men, because it's the men that are going to save them. if they don't get everybody killed doing it. And they don't see it, but I do. But that's the Elijah the prophet, see, to bring the families back together, to show that what's wrong with the system, to show everybody that this is the way it's supposed to be. And if they don't agree, what's going to happen when they don't agree? Because either Christ is there or he's not there. And either you're doing what you're supposed to be doing or you're not. But that's the end of this video, so that you get the gist of it. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.